Welcome to home where faith and family meets. This is Father Tim Donovan, the parochial vicar at St. Bonaventure Parish in Huntington Beach. And this is Pam Hurwitz, my co-host, and welcome.
Thank you. Again, we're in my home again.
Pam's house today on Memorial Day.
I know. What a beautiful way to spend the afternoon with. And we have on two incredible friends of ours.
That's right.
Who we did ministry with for years and years. And I love that when we were in ministry and youth ministry and dealing with so many families, these guys were like on the front lines with us. And since then, they've both professionalized in the area of families and gotten a lot of skills. And so I'm super excited to have them because I know their hearts from ministering beside them. And I also know they have a lot to share with us through the things and the different ways they've been developed.
Also, how providential is this Memorial Day, right? For the people who have given their lives to care for others and to free them and things. And I think there's many ways you can do that. I talked about that today in this morning's Mass. It's not just by being a policeman or working, being a military person, but it's also, I think, any profession that helps people free them from bondage and give them new life and protection is also something we remember today too. Yeah. So a very special welcome to Isaiah and Cecelia. Thanks for joining us today, taking this chunk out of your Memorial Day, your day off, to come and to spend this time with us and to share your wisdom and to share your insight with us. And so welcome.
Thank you.
So they're both, mental health professionals in some way, shape, or form. And I grew up with Isaiah. We were in the same youth group together. Pam was our youth minister for a lot of years there, and we created havoc for her in those years. Isaiah more so than me, I have to say. And Cecelia was one of our catechists, one of our teachers, one of our long-time, you said 17 years earlier,
right?
Huh? Wow. Lord God in the highest.
Yeah. And we raised our kids together, which was another blessing. Right. Our kids were on some of the same teams and in the same classes, and
I love that. See, this is good.
Yeah.
Lots of cool connections here. God is so funny that keeps it together, Like he lets those connections that we form throughout our lives continue in very beautiful ways, providential ways. So I should invite you to introduce yourselves, tell us your name, a little bit about your families maybe, and then also kind of what you do in that field that we're going to talk about today. Who wants to go first?
Okay, I'm Cecelia McKay, and started out a long time ago as an attorney turned stay-home mom, turned family mediator, worked my way to chaplaincy at a hospital, and finally decided to pursue my master's in psychology and become a marriage and family therapist. I'm an associate marriage and family therapist right now. And so I work in a part-time private practice where I see couples and individuals, and I'm also a volunteer therapist at Higher Ground, where I see at-risk children. It's an after-school program in the inner city Anaheim. And I've raised 3 kids, and so I have more, and they're up and out of the house. My last one's in college, so I have a lot of time to devote to pursuing and finishing up, getting all my hours towards my marriage and family therapy license. So
Wonderful.
That's where I am today.
Tell us about your kids.
My kids, I have Kevin, who is in medical school at UCLA in his 3rd year, and then my second son, Jack, is going to be in his last year at Northwestern Law School in Chicago. And then my daughter is a senior at John Paul Catholic University in San Diego, California. So they're all just moving along nicely. And they check in, and I have a couple of them at home right now, off and on for the summer, so it's going to be nice.
Oh, that's the best.
Mm-hmm. It really is.
It's good to have them home, especially when they fly the coop. I know when I left first for seminary, my mom was so upset. She got more used to it as I left more and more, but she was pretty sad every time. I was like, relax, we'll be back,
I know. It's fun when you do come back.
Right?
Yeah.
Kind of bring it in, so.
And I'm Isaiah McPauley Isaac, and I have a master's in social work. Let's see. I have spent the last 6 years or so working in private practice as associate clinical social worker. I also did some case management with foster and probation youth, young adults who were in a transitional housing program. And kind of, I'll kind of share how I ended up where I am in my career, and where I want to go. But in high school, I had some pretty good teachers and had Pam around as a youth minister.
you.
And one of the things that continues to come up for me in whether it's in when I was doing therapy, when I was doing case management, is that kind of that idea of planting the seed, right? And so I kind of carry that, even if I don't necessarily see someone grow into something, I know that I'm a part of their journey in planting the seed. So where my seed was planted originally was one of my school teachers was a theology professor. I could always go back to him to ask different questions about theology, and that led me to go to Loyola Marymount University and originally be a theology major, but decided to change to psychology. And then in doing youth ministry with Tim and kind of taking that on together, just seeing the different problems that came up that I felt unable to adequately attack head on, led me to kind of change to psychology and then go into social work. And that's kind of where I'm at. And I'm kind of in between right now and trying to transition into like student services in colleges.
Nice. What was it initially, besides this the kind of desire to help others, but like, what did you find, I think, most calling to you to this kind of service to others, care for others through this profession? I think we both have, we all share that kind of thing. We're caring for others. We want to we want people to be their best selves. We want people to be free. We want people to know what it means to have a life fully alive, because we all also know what it means to be kind of burdened by our own things and our own struggles and our own pasts and all that. And I think when we've experienced some freedom from that ourselves, I think we want to share that with others. At least I know that's part of my desire as a priest, to do that, to give my life so other people could have life, and I think that's kind of what we all shared here around this table today too.
I think for me, it was the realization of the value of each person and really a love of the person. And that goes along with wanting them to be their best self. And I would often think, do they know their value? Do they know who loves them, right? And people walk around in a cloud of, mental issues, and they really lose sight of who they are, who identifies them and defines them, and that they are loved. So that really, to me, and a desire to share love with them, and God's love. That started me with the ministry and confirmation many, many years ago. I thought, wow, do they know God loves them? And if I can help them along that journey, I was just enthusiastic to do it. And then the same thing in the mental health profession. People come with so many different problems, but we unravel the problems, but along the way, I always think, well, I'm going to also build them up and help to build them up so that they know who they really are and who does define them and how much they are valued and their worth. So.
Amen. One of the statements I always remind people of is that hurt people, but healed people heal people. And I think that's so much of our lives too. Like when we can encounter somebody, they're going to bring that back into their families. They're going to bring that back into their future homes with their own children, own spouses, and that we can have that opportunity to stop this kind of perpetuation of the brokenness that we see in so many of our families. I know as youth minister, as a priest especially, every issue that came through my door, by the time I got to the bottom of it, it always pointed back to the root of the family, the experience there in their home, an early experience that, or a consistent experience that they're having now that has been such a wound on them, And I think the psychological world, but also the spiritual world, is these woundedness is what we're really being called to reach out to touch, to bring God's healing presence into there. And it's interesting that psychology had it's been a more recent development there, right? At least the study of it and the kind of movement of it, but it really kind of has been rooted in a spiritual life the entire time too. So psychology and spirituality are really tightly related too. And I think that's always been on my heart is too. That was a part of my journey too, as I studied psychology for a little bit before I decided to go into the seminary, or was called into there very distinctively. So, yeah.
I was just doing a retreat last week with some junior high students, and we had an activity where the students were able to kind of put away for a couple days some of the things that they were worrying about, or that might kind of sidetrack them from kind of receiving the fullness of those 2 days. And I saw, I had a moment when I was kind of looking a little bit at some of these things and trying to figure out like what were they going to have to pick up and bring back into their lives. And so much of it was like anxiety and worrying and fear and even depression and panic attacks. And I just think that whole aura right now, and I mean this is such a big subject with the phones and with all this kind of stuff, but has parents really stumped too? As far as just kind of, I guess, this idea, and I was just kind of hearing that said a little bit about just sort of the content that, kids don't just seem as content anymore, that there's some, so if you guys could speak on that a bit.
Okay. Yeah, I do notice this. First of all, I say the parent has to understand that there's a difference between being sad and being depressed. Where sadness is part of everyday life, you have ups and downs of emotions. A clinical depression has specific criteria that you want to look at. For example, it says in the diagnostic manual, diagnostic statistical manual, the DSM-5, that it has to be for 2 weeks long, and you have to have specific symptoms, like you're having an eating problem, a sleeping problem, you're losing interest in things that you once enjoyed. It has to actually affect some part of your life. Are you doing poorly in school? Are you not able to connect socially? So you look for areas of your life and has function diminished. Okay. So it looks a bit different. It's a bit stronger than just a sadness. So parents shouldn't get up in arms if their child is moody per se and shows symptoms of sadness. You kind of want to look for the chronic sadness, something affecting their life and for a prolonged period of time. The same thing with anxiety. Anxiety is part of the human body, right? Because it's the survival mechanism. So I was telling Pam, if you didn't have anxiety and there was a black bear about to eat you, Pam, and I said, Pam, there's a bear behind you, she'd go, oh, okay, can you pass the sugar for my tea? And she'd just sit there. So naturally built into the human body is this survival mechanism where all of a sudden, if I said, Pam, there's a black bear behind you, her cortisol and norepinephrine is lifting, rising up in her body, telling her, hey, Pam, you better run. You get more energy, even your lungs expand, and you're able to take fight or flight with that big bear. So anxiety in and of itself, I always tell parents and kids, you're going to try to manage it, but you're not going to try to get rid of it because it's part of us, right? So the problem becomes when in their daily life, they get so wound up in things where they get in a situation that is not a fight or flight situation, but they keep ruminating over something that makes them have feelings of anxiety. And I was talking to Pam, she'd done the retreat and said, well, they're all anxious. And I told her, well, primarily, one big thing is modern technology. So if you're at school and you notice the boy next to you got an A on his paper and you didn't, you might feel sad for a moment. But if you go home and you see chronically on social media everything that boy is doing, like captain of the football team, he got this award, that award. You begin to compare yourself, and then, you begin to have feelings of inadequacy, which give rise to anxiety. So technology, where you see what everybody's doing, right, on a day-to-day basis, and primarily they're not putting the bad things that are happening to them, they're putting the good things. So you begin to compare yourself, and you begin to have feelings of inadequacy. So we have to understand that modern technology has given rise to more depression and anxiety.
And I think one of the things that I've found when I was working with kids or working with teenagers or young adults is it starts with re-educating them about what the range of emotions that they're able to feel and can feel. So with little kids, you start with the simple mad, sad, glad. Very simple. What does it look like to be mad? What does it look like to be sad? What does it look like to be happy? And a large point of the time is people only focus on being happy, that being okay. And that's the emotion that we're all looking for. But we've been designed and built, and a part of our humanity is being able to feel all these different emotions. And I once took the movie Inside Out. I love it because it allows people to understand that I can be mad and sad at the same time. And I've assigned that to adults. I've assigned that to adults with their kids. I've assigned that to teenagers, young adults, just to go watch that movie and come back and talk about it, because a lot of people don't realize that I can be sad and that's okay. That's an emotion that I can feel.
Yeah.
And I can be happy about it. I can be happy at the same time. And I think that movie and games like Mad, Sad, Glad and the Ungame are kind of these things that allow for conversations about those emotions that we feel. So part of it comes back to educating ourselves as professionals, ourselves as parents, ourselves as teens, to be like, we can feel those feelings and that's okay. And when it becomes chronic and clinical is when we're feeling those feelings a lot, when we're feeling those feelings in different areas of our lives, and we may need that extra support to address those feelings in safe and comfortable and consistent environments.
I'm going to piggyback on what Isaiah just said. He said it's okay to feel sad. It's okay to feel some negative emotions. Yeah. And another negative emotion is disappointment. And I think the children of today have been protected or shielded from so much disappointment in their lives that as they get older and go into the real world where they will address disappointment, they don't know how to manage it and they're anxious and depressed. For example, if you have a childhood soccer team of a bunch of 5-year-old to 8-year-old boys, say, the parents might feel, don't give out a first place MVP award because all the kids will feel bad. So I think this type of shielding is detrimental to the kids. You can say, good job, Jimmy, and say Bobby got the MVP award. It's a teaching lesson for the family. You can teach the child within a safe, secure family environment how to have those sad feelings and disappointment that he didn't get the MVP, but it's still okay because he's still okay.
Yeah.
That's an opportunity for the parent to allow the child to feel the negative feeling of sadness or disappointment and work through it at that young age, thereby being able to have resilience so that when he gets to be an adult and there's a disappointment, he can handle it without crashing and burning and being anxious and depressed. Yeah. So this is a problem in our society. You want to speak to that, Tim?
It's just interesting to me to look at like the parents. Also, the kids are also watching the parents' reaction to Johnny getting the MVP award. Like when the parents can't manage their own feelings about it.
Thank you.
Then it becomes, because you have the strongest voice in your kid's life. They're watching you. Like the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. Like I know for me, like even more and more I'm saying things that like my dad would say to me and I'm like, what happened? What is that coming from? Because believe it or not, like everything that they're doing, we're absorbing. It's like that's how God made us. That's how life works. You know, like they're such a heavy influence. And so when we can say, you know what, let's thank God for Johnny's gift, and let's be free to the reality that this doesn't make you any less. But the reality is that, you know, you have gifts too, and it may not being the MVP soccer player, and that can be okay. But I think it starts too with the parents and having the hard one to say, like, yeah, am I free enough to be able to say, like, yeah, let's thank God for this, rather than it being like, you know, my kid doesn't have this, or I'm going to melt down on the sidelines too when my kid makes a mistake on the thing too. And because they're watching that. And I think that if we are not a consistent, safe person, that they're not going to know how to manage that in the same environment either.